Hi, Chris Westfall. Very uncomfortable topic today. I can tell you from my time in law enforcement, having to deal with family after family after family. When a loved one would pass away and they never had anything prepared, they had no idea what to do. It's a very critical, sad time for families. But today I'm going to give you some resources that will help you and your family if you decide to take advantage of them. Completely free. You can download these and print them out, and it will make your life so much easier. Today I want to introduce you to 𝗗𝐿𝐶 𝗵𝘂𝗺. I trust 𝗗𝐿𝐶. She's worked with Morgan Stanley. She's worked with Smith Barney, Merrill Lynch, and she has managed more than $3.2 billion in assets. She is a financial genius, and today she's going to start a series with us, a financial series on things that seniors need to know about. And today we're talking about death and dying, the unfortunate topic that it's not an if, it's a when, and what you can do to prepare for that ahead of time so that when that time does occur, it's not so critically stressful on you. So stick around to the very end where I give those tools to you. But here's 𝗗𝐿𝐶.
Hi, Chris. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So 𝗗𝐿𝐶, in your experience, what is the biggest mistake that you see people making, not just seniors, but in their financial life, and they're getting set up for a lifetime together and then a life beyond? You know, we make that commitment till death do us part, but not too many people take that part into consideration of making their financial plan. So what is the biggest mistake that you see?
It's the lack of planning. I know nobody likes to think about the end or what's going to happen at the end. And in that, most people just don't plan because they don't want to talk about or think about. And that's the biggest problem. And people pass and they leave their loved ones to a world of mess to navigate alone. And that's really hard. And that's definitely the number one problem.
So when people are building a life together, we're always thinking about planning for the future as far as our lives together, with building assets and accumulating, houses and cars, getting the kids off to school, all that kind of thing, without the plan for the very last chapter. What are some things that are key takeaways that somebody can do right now before this happens?
The very simplest things that people have got to do is they really need to be just checking their beneficiaries. As simple as that. Because often you'll set them up, and the first time you sign up for your 401k or you open your IRA or whatever you have, and you identify your beneficiaries, and then life starts to happen. A spouse passes away, you get remarried, children turn into adults, your family expands. There's lots of things that happen and people don't remember to go back and check their beneficiaries. So that's a really simple thing that everybody should be doing every single year. Another thing would be your will. It's important to make sure you have a will. It's important that you review it and that you revise it. I can't tell you how many times I sat across a table from a married couple and we get to the point where, do you have a will? And they're proud. Yes, we do. We did it as soon as we had kids. Your children now have children of their own. You haven't redone your will in 20 years. And I'm just always baffled at, people are really excited that they checked the box, but they never go back and review it. And life changes and things happen. And it's so important to make sure that there's a process and a way of reviewing things on a consistent basis.
Have you ever had a situation, have you ever seen something where the lack of planning with the will, a current will, has actually affected someone's passing and their family beyond that?
Yeah, well, in addition to the will, a lot of times people will set up trusts. Mm-hmm. So trust is another way to avoid probate. And one of the mistakes that I see again and again is people will go through all the effort and take the time and work with an attorney and get their trust set up, and then they never move the assets into the trust name. So all of that pre-work planning that they thought they accomplished wasn't done. They never changed over the titles of their investment accounts or any properties or bank accounts. So it's really important that you take those next steps. And I don't know if that problem was, sometimes it was a lack of education. The attorney didn't really specify, or the individual people weren't working with a trusted advisor to kind of reassure and to go through that. So it's one of the things that we do, is that we always want to make sure that our advisors and our clients are really looking at the big picture on at least an annual basis. And it could be as quick as, hey, no changes, no updates. But it's important to be mindful and be thinking about those things.
And in just a minute, we're going to talk about two resources that we're going to give away today for free for people to get ready for things that are going to happen. It's inevitable. It's not if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. The first of those two resources, when something does happen, and I just saw a statistic yesterday that 8 out of 10 women today that are married will end up being in the sole financial driver's seat because their husbands will likely pass before they do, leaving them with all the burden of figuring out everything. And I can tell from doing this for 26 years now and doing life insurance that this is such a sudden burden to many widows that are brand new to it. They don't know what to do first. And it's in our document that we're going to give away today, but can you hit some highlights on the things that you have to do right when, let's say it's a woman and her husband passes away? What's the first thing that they should be thinking about?
Honestly, Chris, the first thing is take a deep breath and take care of yourself. Surround yourself with people that you love and that love you, and take the time to grieve a little bit. It's really important. There's nothing so imminent in the financial world that has to take you away from being in the moment. But the second most important thing is use our check sheet or use something to help you stay organized. There's so many things that have to be done. And the worst thing is when all of those ideas and tasks are running through your mind and it just paralyzes. What I've seen women get so depressed. I've seen them just get into a really dark place, and they just don't know what to do next. And so that's the worst thing. And so what we really want to try to do is be that resource and walk alongside you, break it down step by step. There are certain things you have to do early on, and we're going to help navigate those things. And then what we can do is we can organize it, what you need to do week 1, week 2, week 3, and take it piece by piece and just tackle them one item at a time so that you're not overwhelmed. The second biggest piece of advice is don't do it alone. Either have a trusted loved one, family member, trusted advisor, somebody to help as you go through the process.
So as I'm zeroing in on this, one of the things that stands out to me is you have to order a death certificate because all the financial things start to trigger once you can actually prove what's happened. What is some advice when it goes to ordering death certificates that people just don't typically know?
They never order enough. It definitely costs money to order a death certificate, and I don't think people are really aware of what you need them for, but you're going to have an original death certificate for every single account that is there. So you're going to have for every bank account, every investment account, each account that you'll have to have that original death certificate. On average, people should probably be ordering 10. Unless there is significant financial assets and accounts spread out, then you need to have more. And Chris, let me tell you a story. I worked with a man not that long ago, and it took us over 2 years before we were able to actually consolidate all of the assets from his father. His dad thought he was doing the right thing and diversifying and having a little bit of money everywhere. But he had multiple credit unions, multiple banks. He wanted his money in CDs at all the different banks. He had mutual funds held directly with the companies. He had stock certificates still held directly. He had investment accounts. And it was a 2-year process that at some point it really became a joke where he would call in and be like, well, I found another account, and he was constantly having to go back, reorder death certificates and all of the paperwork that's involved. So that's definitely an area that people under anticipate and don't fully understand.
I see that one of the items is to contact your insurance agent, specifically a life insurance agent. Just a really quick story. It was about 6 months ago. I helped a family member, well, the whole family, go through the process of getting the funeral all set up for a family member who I had sold a life insurance policy to 15 years earlier. And it was just nice to see when all that's going on and we go down to meet with the funeral director that all I had to do was bring the life insurance policy, show it to them, and they said, everything's taken care of. Don't worry. We're going to give you the refund after everything is taken care of, because the policy was larger than the funeral was going to be. But I could just tell that being in that role, as having written that life insurance policy those many years ago, it added so much peace and comfort to the family so that they didn't have to go look at each other and say, okay, how are we going to pay for this? Which one of us is going to step up? Which one is going to borrow money from another? Are we going to run a GoFundMe like a lot of people do these days because they didn't prepare? But yeah, just being on that side of it, seeing that reassurance that the family has is, oh man, everything is taken care of. That's a great thing. So this checklist of what to do when a loved one passes, we'll talk about that in just a minute as to how people can access that. But even on the front end, before it gets to the chaos of worrying about what to do after the fact, what are the things that we can do beforehand so that we don't have so much chaos and crisis happening after the death, which again is not something that maybe will happen. We know it's going to happen, and there are some things that we can do to prepare ahead of time. What are some of those things?
Absolutely. Organizing is key, and information and sharing that knowledge is really important. So it's completely fine and normal for households to have roles. And that's great. I mean, we have roles in our household, and one person is primary in finance. There's nothing wrong with that. But what is wrong is when the other partner is completely in the dark, because you're not doing any favors when they know nothing. So at the very least, annually, husbands and wives should sit down, and they should at least have a quick conversation and a snapshot of everything that they have in their financial life. So we've got some tools that can help you organize your personal finances and list out the different documentations that you should have. At Retirement Planning Center, we actually ask that our clients utilize a document vault. So there's an online tool that you can upload all of your important financial documents. It's password protected and secure, and you can share it with trusted loved ones, or maybe the executor of who's going to be your trust, things like that. But you want to have all of your important documentations organized and together. You want to have a list of all of your financial assets, as well as all of your liabilities. There should be no question to kind of what's out there, what bills are being paid, what's on auto pay. Chris, I got another story, but I had helped a husband and wife that had recently sold a business, and they were on king of the mountain. I mean, they were ecstatic. This was what they worked their whole lives for. Early retirement, cashed out on their business. 3 months later, he dies of a sudden heart attack. The wife, who they just planned like a vacation, is now stuck with everything, and she knew nothing. She knew nothing about all the financial assets. She knew nothing about paying any of the bills, and her lives and hopes were just crushed. So she's newly widowed. She's got all of these funds and assets. Luckily, we did amazing estate planning early on, so that side was good, but still the transition in helping her uncover and navigate, and that story happens over and over, where one side is just completely clueless. So it's really important. This organizer is helpful in that people have a good understanding of what bills are out there, what accounts are out there, how they're paid. So it's really important to be organized and to be thorough and go through this work up front.
𝗭𝐿𝐶ie, you're going to be coming back for a series on financial topics related to seniors and our audience specifically. I wanted to ask you this question while we're on here. What is the most important thing that someone should look for when they're looking to an advisor, especially in their golden years, when they're maybe past their accumulation phase and now they want to retain things and maybe not be exposed to as many risks as they were when they were building their nest egg? What are some things that they need to look for in an advisor? Because you're somebody that I trust, and I want to hear from you. What should they be looking for out there?
Absolutely. Chris, I have worked with amazing advisors across many firms. There are great people out there at many places, but unfortunately, there are a lot of bad advisors. So the first thing that I always go for is my gut check. I feel like I have a pretty good sense of whether somebody is being truthful or not. So trust your intuition, trust your instincts. If you feel like something's not quite right, there's no problem with asking questions. So my number one is ask questions. And if you get a negative feel or vibe, then that advisor just isn't right for you. I think it's so important that when you're working with a trusted advisor, trust. That's key. You have to trust the person, because it's such an intimate relationship that they're getting to know everything about your financial life and making sure that things pass correctly. So experience is good. You want experience. Obviously, you don't want somebody who's older than you, because you want them to be around, hopefully, right, for the passing. So I think that that's important, that sometimes people overlook. And well balanced. I always run from the advisors who claim to be an expert in everything. I know that that's impossible. You can be knowledgeable about an inch deep on all topics, but you can only be an expert at a few things. Chris, you know that. I mean, you're our absolute expert at Medicare, going to you for everything Medicare related. And that's what's key. So I think if you find an advisor who has a team surrounding them of experts, that's golden. So those are a couple of the things.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for this valuable information. And I'm going to tell everybody how they can get those documents now.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris.
Now, we just mentioned 2 tools that you can download, and here they are. Here's a QR code where you can download it to your phone if you want to, or the description below this video on YouTube will have the link that you can click on the link and you can download each of these resources. Let me tell you what they are. One is what to do immediately after someone passes away. All the steps that you need to do, from the most important and urgent right now to the not so urgent that you can do simply weeks from now. But having this in front of you before you need it is very critical. So I encourage you to download this document and print it out with your printer so you have access to it. The second document is what to do ahead of all this, so that when the time does come, everything is already prearranged. You know where all the assets are, and this is a real critical problem that we see over and over again. Typically, it's the wife. As I mentioned before, 8 out of 10 are widows that don't know what to do when this time happens. This document, the second one, is what to do ahead of time, organizing everything so you know where to find those and having that critical conversation before it's actually needed. So you can either download it from the QR code shown here on the screen, but that would only go to your phone, or using the link that's in the video description below, so you can print it out and take some time to peruse these documents. And make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe to this channel, because the discussions we're going to have in the future are all about senior issues. I talk about Medicare, and I'll have 𝗗𝐿𝐶 coming back talking about financial issues with regard to seniors and what they need to look out for, so we can make your life a little bit easier. I'm Chris Westphal. Thanks for joining me today. God bless you, and we'll see you next time.